Okay, good morning. As Bill said, my name is Brittany Gernhard. I'll give a kind of overview of what the Data Visualization Center at Federal Highways is, and then Anna Batista will come up and kind of follow that with sort of why it might be valuable to have a service like this. So our team here, we have Justin Clark, our fearless leader at Federal Highways, and he's supported by Chris Allen, who's here as well. And Samin Hashem is on our team as well. She's our graphic design lead. And Anna, of course, you will meet in a moment. So there's two main services that the Data Visualization Center provides. So we do kind of a proactive outreach to all employees at Federal Highways. We do webinars, we do presentations, we have services, kind of handouts and information on our intranet website that folks can download. And then we also do project support for specific data sets that folks might have that they're looking for some more particular advice on. FHWA staff can reach us by going to an online submission form. They provide a little bit of background about the data that they have, a little bit about their audience, and sort of what they're looking for. This is an example of one of the handouts that we had during one of our webinars. We try to have a pretty broad focus for our webinars so that a general employee might be able to find value from that. So this one was focused on maps, on using geospatial data. And then we have a chart selector. You just kind of start in the middle and figure out what's the nature of the data that what am I trying to show, what's my message. So if you have composition or something and then parts of a whole, you kind of go from there. We've accepted 129 projects have kind of come through our door since we've started, and we have around a dozen or so projects in process at any given time. Projects vary greatly in terms of how long they take, how involved they are, a few weeks, a few months, a year or more. It's rare, but does happen. Actually, Meredith Broussard and the panel we just came from mentioned that data journalists are very lucky in that they're usually using kind of a public data set that's already there, and it takes longer to develop your own data. So I would say that's definitely true. That's a big part of the process, is refining data or updates to it. Here's some of the services we provide. We do some consultation if someone thinks, their product is already pretty good and just wants some feedback on it. But more commonly, folks like us to kind of get our hands on their visualization and provide some tweaks. This is probably our most public project at the Data Visualization Center. We do Wow Wednesday factoids. So these go out on the social media sites for Federal Highways, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Definitely the images are certainly meant to be understood quickly, meant to be understood by the general public, meant to be eye-catching. We have done some animated ones. Those are pretty popular as well. And they're getting some attention lately. They're getting picked up by some major national news outlets. People like them. They're, there's a lot happening at Federal Highways, and they like highlighting that. On the, I guess this is, on your right is an example of a flyer. TRB annual conference is a pretty busy time of the year for Federal Highways and for the Data Visualization Center. Offices like to have something that they can put out there. So this is an example of a TRB flyer that we did. And then on the left is an example of a poster that an office wanted up, just kind of internally, just to let the office know this is how we're doing with employee retention and satisfaction. So these have been really popular in several different offices. Some of the tools that we use, we like using Leaflet. It's an open source JavaScript library that seems to be not too burdensome as far as security approvals and those sorts of things. We do use Tableau. It is starting to, be a bit more common at Federal Highways. A few more folks are getting it, so it's another option. This is an example of a hex map that we made. We like these if We like these because it minimizes the Alaska effect, which can take up a lot of space on a map, and then also if something's happening in Rhode Island, that can be hard to notice in a typical map, so this equalizes the size of the states. There is a drawback that it kind of shifts some of the states around, so if the spatial trend is important, it might not be totally accurate using this map, so it just depends on the type of data that you're working with. Chart overhauls are kind of the bread and butter of DVC projects, of kind of advice that folks are looking for, charts for reports or flyers or that sort of thing. I don't know if Frank Browen's here, but he asked a really good question yesterday during Donna Wong's talk. He said, kind of, what's the balance between a really complex data visual versus something you can understand in 3 seconds? And so we find ourselves in that balance a lot. So I think these are examples of quite a bit of data. The relationships are kind of complex, but working with the client to figure out, who is your audience. Something that is really common is folks are in their niche and really familiar with their data set, and maybe if your audience is the general public, it might not be terribly clear to them, even though it's clear to you. So working with that, and sometimes it is appropriate to go with a lot of information and more of a complex relationship sort of visual. This is an example of a dashboard that was done in Excel. These are pretty popular for sort of internal office monitoring. We've helped a few offices integrate these with their SharePoint sites. They really like that it's easy to access. This is an example of the HPMS scorecard we've been working on. This is probably I would say this is probably our biggest project, actually. It works with the HPMS, Highway Performance Monitoring System data set, and outputs feedback on a state-by-state basis. This was done in our studio, our coding language. And then we try to offer support for 508 compliance with all of our projects. That's just part of the service that we offer. Is this accessible to visually impaired? Is it colorblind friendly? I think it's around 10% of men have a color deficiency, 8% very common red-green, and red-green, of course, are very common colors that people like to use in their charts. So I'll hand this over to Anna. We'll talk a little bit more about why a data visualization center.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I work with Brittany. All right, so why the DVC? I hope it seems apparent that it would be useful. Charles said in that session there, wouldn't it be nice for a lot of these people to have a service where someone was just creating visuals for you? Well, it's exactly what the DVC does. The Visualization Working Group at FHWA had that brilliant idea. And now we're just the place everyone can come to, because there's a lot of data at FHWA. All of these databases, some of them are public, and there's so much data in internal offices in addition to the databases that are out there. And all of this information is out there in reports, on websites, and the easiest way to present it often looks like this. So this is kind of the default way of being completely transparent and getting all the data out there. That one on the right there is the legislatively mandated, publicly available FMIS data, and they fulfilled that requirement. But FHWA saw that they wanted to try and do more, and so they hired the DVC and they formed it, and now we create things out of that data that looks like this. And it's just a lot more approachable. The visualization is something much more appropriate for a public-facing information rather than expecting them to pore over tables. We all know visuals are important. That's why we're all here. Okay, we process it much faster. We retain it. It tells the story. There's a quote from Edward Tufte, who we all revere, at least to some extent. So on the left, you've got a table. On the right, you have the visual. Raw data is forgettable. Nothing pops out at you. The relationship's not clear. On the right, it is. And everyone tries to make visuals. You can know that they're important, and so you go into your Excel and you make a chart, or you go into PowerPoint and you develop something, or you know GIS. You know someone who can do GIS, so you make a map. But it's really hard to make them successful sometimes. So these are things that we have gotten in from the DVC, to the DVC that we take on. You'll see some of them a bit later. So the DVC, we understand that the details matter, right? We're there to try and instill these details for people who are making visuals in their office, okay? Is your message coming across? Is it front and center? Are you providing enough context? Are you using color appropriately? Are you using the right chart type for your information? Placing it matters for what message is going to get across. So all these different nuances that maybe you don't think about on a normal basis, we're trying to bring that to the Federal Highway Administration. That's part of the outreach part of what Brittany was just talking about. Webinars and handouts, talking with people through consultations so that we can turn something that's a little bit hard to comprehend, not quite using color appropriately, to something that's a little bit more focused and gets the message across. That's the visual you saw before. Turn it into a graphic that's a little bit more approachable, a little bit more digestible. And the way we do this is really focusing on the everyday use. There's a lot of really cool tools here. There's virtual reality, and there's 3D, and there are APIs that are being used in lots of cool new front-end formats and back-end databases, but that's out of reach for most people, and there's not the money or the know-how to go about using those. So we're focused really on providing good everyday data use in everything from PowerPoint to Excel. Meredith mentioned that Excel can be a good start for your visual, and at the DVC, sometimes it's more than a start. Excel can be a really great tool for visuals, and if you get creative, it can be very flexible. That said, we are always looking for new visualization options. Brittany mentioned Leaflet in R, Tableau. D3 is a hugely popular one. Brittany's learning some Python coding so that we can branch out and do more with our visualizations. But again, the goal at the DVC, it's all about the everyday. Good habits, increase skills at the agency, and increase expectations for just good data presentation all the time. You know, it's becoming the new office habit. You know, the new Excel, the new word processing is just good data habits. That's what we're here for.